Like many young PC gamers in the early 2000s, I played a ton of Age of Empires 2. I mean, who didn't? Squares, that's who. Well, unless they were playing a far better RTS, largely forgotten by the gaming populace at large. Anyway, I can't count the number of hours I spent waging war in Age of Empires 2, nor can I truly understate how supremely strange it is to come back to it after 13 years. Yes, that's right, 13 years. If you played this back in the day, you are officially old. I'll admit I was concerned that my reverence for this title was largely based on nostalgia and not critical analysis. But not only did I come away from my time with HD Edition feeling quite satisfied, I also feel like I'd come to appreciate how gaming has changed since the days of my youth. And here's why. I think we're all a bit wary of the term HD at this point, as it's been used to mean just about everything. But even with that in mind, Age of Empires 2 HD Edition kinda takes the biscuit. Yes, the graphics have been cleaned up some, and it does run at a contemporary 16:9 resolution. But at the same time, no one is going to mistake this for a game that came out recently. The animations are still really choppy, the hotkeys are still ludicrously unintuitive, and the AI is still suicidal, let's say. And I'm fine with that, you know, they never marketed this thing as being a full-on remake, and I'm not sure I'd want one even if they did. What you get here is Age of Empires 2 as it was, warts and all. And while the gameplay may suffer some because of that, it makes it far more interesting as a sort of time capsule. And it also means that it's a lot harder for the old nostalgia glasses to obscure your vision. I think the most jarring thing about coming back to Age of Empires is perhaps the pacing. With the speed cranked up to max, it still feels laboriously slow, even by RTS standards. It's not something that really bothered me back in the day, and I think that's because now that we've got so many games at our fingertips, any time spent watching a piece of siege equipment slowly crawl across the battlefield is time we could better spend making meaningful progress in just about any other game. I'm not saying Age of Empires isn't worth the time investment. In fact, I'd say that's a very big part of the appeal of the game. Building up a settlement piece by piece over a long period of time brings with it a level of emotional attachment to what is essentially just a menagerie of crude sprites. It makes those hard-fought victories feel all the sweeter, and also makes those long drawn-out losses feel truly crushing. It also provides a rather intriguing quandary. In this age where games have maybe 7 to 10 hours of real content tops, it's interesting to start thinking, do I want to finish one campaign in Age of Empires, or do I want to finish an entire game from my atrocious back catalogue? Food for thought. One of my favourite things to do in RTSs back in the day was mess around with the map editing tools. I'd spend hours creating humongous battles and ridiculous cities and all kinds of other nonsense. It didn't matter that the maps weren't fun to play because no one else was going to play them. Back then, the actual sharing of maps and mods was the realm of a very privileged few who weren't limited by terrible dial-up connections, and who were also willing to navigate the ocean of files and folders on a Windows PC. So, by far the most interesting thing they've added with this HD re-release is integration with the Steam Workshop, which allows you to install texture packs, maps, or even total conversions with the simple click of a button. It's far from perfect, but it's a clear sign of how Steam has allowed us to move away from the high barrier of entry that used to permeate every level of PC gaming. And furthermore, I'm hoping it will help an entirely new breed of gamer get their hands on Age of Empires' old but surprisingly accessible and robust editing tools in order to create some truly amazing new content. Or they'll just make a bunch of nude mods again. Yay! The map design in the single-player campaign is incredibly brutal. It often asks you to make best use of very limited resources without providing a single bit of reference to what you'll be facing further down the line. For example, maybe you lose most of your forces to a successful castle assault, only to find out that destroying said castle spawns an army of armoured knights right next to your capital. And then there's the many times where taking a path other than the path you're supposed to take will result in a very quick curb stomp from which there is no escape. It forces you to learn the game's intricacies as well as the flaws within your own strategy through loss. With each defeat, you take the knowledge of how and why your journey came to an abrupt end, and you use it to further strengthen your position next time. And then you probably lose again, but then you'll be even more prepared for the next round, and slowly but surely you claw your way to victory through each subsequent loss, until you're practically a master of that given scenario. I'm not saying that's better or worse than our current more friendly approach to game design, but it's just interesting to think that once upon a time that was the norm, and not simply the domain of niche titles like XCOM or Dark Souls. In related news, I'm still quite bad at Age of Empires. It's difficult for me to tell if current-gen gamers will find this game truly compelling. I suppose at the very least it opens up a window to a time when game design was very different. Still, I'd like to think it has more value than a simple curiosity. It's a testament to its strong design that 13 years later I'm just as willing to throw my time at it, even though I now have over 300 games on my Steam list that I could and quite possibly should be playing instead. HD Edition isn't just a cash grab, it's a victory lap, one this game has thoroughly earned.